Hi there, you're listening to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. Hi there, you're listening to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. My guests and myself share our entrepreneurial journey and our methods for a balanced life. I'm joined here today by Ray Jansma. Ray, thank you for joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks very much for having me, Leo. Much appreciated. I am a Southern California native, born and raised here in the greater Long Beach area, I'll call it, and have been here most of my life. In 2003, my job moved me to Southern Nevada, Las Vegas in particular. Lived there about 10 years, and then spent about 7 years bouncing around the country in the oil and gas industry. And then during COVID, came back to Southern California because this was home. So I have four kids between my wife and myself, and we have six grandkids. Three of whom are pretty local, and three of whom live halfway across the country. But we enjoy our family time as much as we can, and we live near the beach, so we enjoy spending time on the beach. And we've got a couple of little Yorkies, and they're a big part of our lives. So, and we enjoy travel. So that's kind of in a nutshell my life, if you will.
Southern California lifestyle. I was reading something interesting, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that talked about America is relatively unique in terms of the portability of people. So you talked about you've lived elsewhere. Most countries, people don't really move, or if they do move, they move to a place and sort of stay there. But the movability in America, where people will often move around to different places for work, it's unusual. There's not many countries that are quite like that. Where else did you live in America?
Well, first of all, I was not aware of that we tend to be more portable than the rest of the world. But uh, well, I went, like I said, initially to Vegas. I was there for 10 years. I have been in the distribution side of the business development business for most of my career. And I went from being in a business development role to a senior general manager role. I took over our company's flagship branch, which was Las Vegas, and uh, built that to more than double the revenue it was doing when I took it over in about 5 years. But then, of course, during the Great Recession, Las Vegas was one of the ground zero locations, if you will, and we were in the construction industries. Um, I literally went from managing five different businesses and about 125 people to one business that was now down to about 15 people in the course of 2 or 3 years. And then I took over my father-in-law retired, and my wife was working for him for 20 years. So he said, either you guys take over the business or I'm going to sell it. So I left that role, and we took over a union construction company during the recession. That was a tough road to hoe, but we kept our doors open, which is more than I can say for a lot of small contractors in Southern Nevada at the time. My career started in the oil and gas industry, and I had an opportunity to go back into that industry. And that took us to north central Pennsylvania, Williamsport to be exact. We were about 15 minutes from the southern New York border, center of the state. Lived there for about a year. The business reasons the company that moved me there wanted me there, we realized we're not working the way they had plans. Uh, we went to Pittsburgh and lived in Pittsburgh for about 2 years. And then as the economy started to change a little bit in the energy industry, I went to San Antonio for the same company, lived there for almost 5 years. And then, of course, during COVID, uh, gas went from, positive $70 a barrel to negative $30 a barrel overnight. And so that gig ended. And looked at my wife, said, we've got two homes in California, and that's home. So why don't we head back to Southern California? So June 1 of 2020, we found ourselves back here, and I'm guessing that they will carry us out of here in a box. We both love where we're at, and have no intention of leaving anytime soon.
And your entrepreneurial journey these days, where you've got your own business, a franchise. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I was really not, when I got back here, not in the mood to be looking for yet another corporate role. And as I mentioned, I'd made a lot of money for other companies. Not that I didn't do well on my own, during that time. And we invested in a lot of real estate as a result of some of the roles that allowed us to do. And so I really wasn't in a rush to get back into anything. And then somebody approached me about looking at different opportunities. And so I weighed about four different opportunities and ended up buying into Eric Group, which we recently rebranded from Expense Reduction Analyst. It is a company that's been around well, since 1992, so 23 years. I'm sorry, 33 years. And they have a good brand, they have a good program, and I will admit that starting during COVID was a bit of an uphill battle. And also having been out of the Southern California market for about 17 years meant that I needed to rebuild my network a bit. I jumped in with both feet in terms of getting out there and networking and joining the various networking organizations, Association for Corporate Growth, BNI, Executive Connections, and on and on. Right? And that now 2 or 3 years later is absolutely paying off in terms of the networks that I've developed and the referrals that are coming in as a result of that. And then on the other side, putting the nose to the grindstone, and like with most companies, building your internal network is just as important as your external network. So I've really worked hard to get to know other people who have been not only successful in this role, but who have been doing it for a very long time. And that's one of the great things about the Era Group network is people are so pay it forward thinking, right? It's like I have yet to say, hey, do you have 30 minutes? I'd really like some of your advice because somebody I know has a particular uh, expertise that I could benefit from listening to. And I've yet to anybody say, yeah, I just don't have time for that. Everybody is just ridiculously generous with their time. And when you come into that, then when people ask you later, hey, can you help out? I don't want to say you feel obligated, but you kind of feel privileged that now you're in that role to be able to pass on some of the wisdom that you've gained along the road. So it's been a fun road. Like I said, with COVID, the runway's been a little longer than I anticipated, but we have found our stride, and things are taking off. So very pleased with it.
Now, when I moved here, someone said to me that the reason everyone is so friendly, and I was finding people who are direct competitors of me introducing potential sources and things like that. So, I'm competing with them and they're helping me compete with them. And someone said to me, the reason is because this is an entertainment town. And outside of entertainment, so let's call it the finance world loosely, you're the outsiders anyway. So imagine, I don't know the entertainment world. My guess is the entertainment world probably don't help each other out to the same level. But outside of that, we're all the outsiders. Uh, and then talking about sort of the current business. So what do you generally do with for your customers?
Okay, so we work in the middle market, and we define the middle market as anywhere from 10 million to 500 million in annual revenue. We are industry agnostic, so we will go wherever it makes sense for us to go. We have kind of three roles within our group, and that is we have business development people like myself. A lot of the business development people will also do project management, but we do have people who that's all they do is project management. Somebody goes out and gets a client, they pick up the phone, they call their project manager and say, hey, I've got a new client, let me introduce you. And then they go off and get the next client and turn that project management over. And then the third role, because we couldn't find anything that was more difficult to remember, is solution delivery specialist. And these are the people generally who have a very strong background in a given role in a given industry, and that could be in finance, in packaging, in logistics, in insurance, benefits, etc. So we have about 50 different categories that we operate in. So it's not uncommon to go in and you kind of, well, we do an evaluation for our clients before they sign anything and say, look, here's where the low hanging fruit is. Would you like to engage us or do you want to go off and do this by yourself? And generally, it's pretty daunting, right? Because we identify a pretty broad range of things that most clients would love to get costs under control, but simply don't have the staff or the time or the expertise to do that. So we come in with anywhere from 6 to 10 or 12 experts in the areas that I just mentioned, and they will now take a deep dive on the client's spend in that area. Uh, we get some agreement on what that spend looks like. What are you spending, or how much are you spending, what are you spending it on, and who are you spending it with? And once we get that agreement, then we move on to, depending on the project, obviously, but generally we go out to an RFP or an RFQ. And then as we gather all the results from that process, we will put together anywhere between 2 and 5 options that the client can select from. And whether that means going with all new vendors, shuffling the business between current incumbent vendors, or some variation thereof. And then when the client makes that decision, then we also implement. So we go, if there's a new vendor, we make sure they get hooked up with the appropriate stakeholders inside of our client's organization. Um, and we also obviously work with the stakeholders very closely to make sure that everything is a smooth transition. And then we monitor that for anywhere between 24 and 36 months to make sure that the vendors are living up to the obligations that they've signed up for. And, on average, if we go across the board, all of our clients, all of our categories, we save an average of 15%. So, I mean, if we're looking at a company and we're reviewing $30 million in spend, it's not unusual at all for us to be able to save them, say, $4.5 million in a year, which obviously allows them to fund whatever initiatives that would allow them to fund as time goes. And then and then we share in some of that savings, and that's where our remuneration comes from, is that share. So we don't actually write our first invoice until the client has selected an option. So we can have literally hundreds of hours invested in a client before there's any revenue that comes our way. So we kind of have two value propositions. One is that we don't find any savings, there's no fee, and the other value proposition is that once we find the savings, what that fee is going to look like, and it's going to be a portion of the savings. So you're realizing additional revenue, additional EBITDA. We're getting paid for the work that we did to help create that. And then at the end of the contract period, then realize 100% of those savings. So that's kind of the business model. And I'm one of kind of a small percentage, and that I find myself in all three of those roles. So I'm not sure how large the group is within North America that does all three, but I'm pretty sure it's in the single digits. So.
Well, obviously you got some good skills to be able to do all three roles. And talk to us, so you mentioned a bit about family. You mentioned you've got a blended family and a collection of grandkids. Uh, Tell us more about family and what family really means to you.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my wife and I are, of course, are empty nesters, and we live here in the Belmont area of Long Beach. And it's funny, when we first moved back to California, the idea was that we would live in the Long Beach house for a couple of years, get it fixed up, and then we had a place in Huntington Beach, which was going to be our forever home. And after about 3 months here, my wife looked at me and said, "Yeah, we're not going anywhere." So here we are, and I was pretty happy about that because I really like Long Beach a lot. One of the reasons I bought here 25 years ago. So yeah, and then close by we have our eldest and his family, his wife and their 2 kids who are 10 and 9, a daughter and a son, and his wife owns a dance studio of Orange County. She is she's was on the squad for the 49ers and then for the Lakers for several years. So dance has always been pretty much a part of her life. So they were able to start a studio about eight years ago, I think now. And it's grown. I think they have like 175 students in that group. So fortunately, because they're close by, we get to spend a lot of time with them. They do date nights on Monday, so we get to go over there and spend a couple hours with the grandkids every Monday evening. So that's important to us. We also have the family that we call them chosen family. We're bouncing around the country. We got to meet a lot of people, and we have been fortunate to stay in touch with folks from the Northeast and from Texas, and then of course the group of friends that we've developed since we've been back in California. So we consider them family, even though obviously they're not blood related. And then going in order, our daughter is in Omaha, but they have chosen the path less traveled, just based on some investments they made and some other things that they're doing. They're able to be very itinerant, so they have a one-ton dually and a 44-foot trailer, and the two of them and their three kids travel around the country. And if they decide they like it in Nashville, they might stay there for 3 months, and then they might find themselves in Texas for 4 months or 4 weeks or whatever it is. And so they're very, very itinerant. And they homeschool. Kids seem to be doing amazingly well, so so yeah. And then our
Love
two
that.
youngest. I'm sorry.
That's an interesting lifestyle. I mean, I love the idea of it, and I think I could see how it'd be fun. Not quite for me, but I could definitely see how that could be fun, and for the kids, what a experience they're getting as they grow up. But sorry, you were about
Yeah,
to go on to your third.
yeah, no problem. But I agree. I don't know if I could do that. Although the trailer is pretty big, right? I mean, it's like a small house, 44 feet, and it pops out. So that it's not like five of them in a cramped RV. She posts pictures all the time on Facebook of them doing, incredibly fun things with the kids. So they are getting an experience that most kids don't have an opportunity to. And then moving on to number three, both of our youngest boys are in Vegas. The oldest one is a single dad and with a daughter who will be 3 in July. And so I get out there about every other month along with my wife. We drive out. She usually flies out in between there, and so she's out there about once a month. So we get to spend quite a bit of time with them. And then our youngest one, he's still a carefree bachelor, and he actually works in the security business uh, in the casino environment. So and the oldest one is in the construction trades, as his dad is. So anyway, so that yeah, that accounts for all four kids and all six grandkids and locales and so forth. But we feel very fortunate. We all know those families where they're wonderful families, and yet they have one that just brings them nothing but heartbreak. And we every day count our blessings that we are not in that group. So.
Always tough. I've got a friend. Well, actually got a few friends, but I've got one friend who's sort of older, and yeah, his one of his kids, he's not. They don't talk at all. They've fallen out, and yeah, nothing sadder. So I agree 100%. And then we started talking before we kicked off the podcast today about some aspects of health and your plans for another marathon. But talk to us about what health means for you in the different aspects of health.
Yeah, so I've always been, I mean, in my adult life, I mean, I think I read my first health food book, which in retrospect is laughable today, considering all the science that's gone into nutrition in the last 30 or 40 years. Um, but I have always been interested in nutrition and just, trying to eat clean, and I can't say I've been as disciplined in that as I would like my whole life, but it's something that when I got away from it felt like I was away from it, right? I mean, one of the cool things about living in Southern California is, we have lots of bike paths, lots of running paths. I used to work right here on these offshore islands here in Long Beach, but I lived in La Palma. It was about a 17-mile commute. And I could get on a bike path and be at work almost as fast on my bike as I could with the car, just because I had no traffic lights, et cetera, to deal with. Um, and so I did that 3 days a week. I was at the gym 6 days a week. And, it got to the point where I almost couldn't eat enough to keep up with the calories I was burning, which is not a bad place to be, right? So you really get to enjoy what you eat at that point. So, but yeah, so that's been a big part of me. And then I never really got into running a ton younger. It was almost all bicycling and again, the weight training and that kind of thing. But I started running about 8 years ago now. have run countless 5Ks and 10Ks. Finished my first half marathon in 2019 in San Antonio, the Alamo half. Well, actually, of course, I have a full as well. But yeah, we did the Alamo half K. My wife and I both did it. And God bless her, she had a couple injuries during training, so her longest training run was about 6 miles, and she still managed to finish the half slowly, but she finished. So anyway, so I've been wanting to run a full for a while. I've had a couple of minor injuries that kind of precluded me from doing some serious training, but I'm hoping to run the Long Beach Marathon, which is the first weekend in October this year. So I'm up to running 10Ks and trying to build that up. So I've got a pretty good runway between now and October, so I should be able to achieve what I'd like by that stage in the game.
Well, maybe we'll be running together after
Yeah,
maybe the Manhattan Beach. I'll see you there.
there you go. Yeah, when is the Manhattan Beach event?
With May. Literally
8th of
got the
May.
email line today.
Okay.
Looks appealing. Never done that one. Well, it's a brand new one, so no one's ever done it. Uh,
Okay. Okay. I'll go find it and get registered.
they're an inaugural event, but looks fun. They got a 5K and a half marathon. And what do you like to do for fun?
Well, was hit by a car when I was 12 or 13 years old and ended up staying home from school for about 6 or 8 weeks. And as I was getting better, my mom used to drive a school bus, so she had to leave about, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and didn't get home till 5:30 or 6. So she taught me how to get dinner started and that kind of thing. And I realized at a pretty young age that I really enjoyed cooking. Um, so we do dinner parties about once a month at our house. So that's something that we do that we enjoy a lot. We like going to theater. Um, and that can be anywhere from going to see the symphony to we've got some great local playhouses here in Long Beach. I'm not the concert goer I once was, but you've seen that T-shirt that says "I may be old, but I got to see all the great bands." Well, I love that T-shirt because when I was younger, I did go see all of the bands that are legends today. So anyway, I've always enjoyed going to those kinds of venues. And when we were in San Antonio, the cooking thing really kind of came in handy. We were members of a gourmet club there where it was about 6 couples in every month that would rotate, and there was always a theme to it. So it would be, we're cooking from the south of France, or we're doing a Julia Child's evening or whatever. So you brought some dish, and then you had to pair a wine with that dish and explain why you paired that wine with that particular dish. And it was we enjoyed that a lot. So we're thinking about trying to get that put together. We just have to find other people who like to cook as much as I do. So so yeah, that's a couple of the things that we do for fun. That and just stay busy with the grandkids and attend their sporting events. Because of the dance studio, our oldest granddaughter, she's very accomplished dancer, wins a lot of accolades and medals at the competitions that she goes to. And then our grandson is involved in jujitsu and wrestling, and now just recently started playing football, and he's a receiver. So yeah, we try to make as many of his sporting events or I should say their sporting events as we can. So that all keeps us pretty busy.
Sounds like a good mix. Well, I'm going to ask, how does a balanced life look for you? And it sounds like you actually have a relatively balanced life, but that not the perpetual balance, because none of us are perpetual, but overall, how does a balanced life look for you?
Yeah, well, yeah, no doubt there. Yeah, and especially right now, like I said, things ramped up a little more slowly than anticipated. So when they're now finally taking off, and I'm finding myself at this apex where I need to change the business model a little bit and bring some people in, and it's just a question of making a decision. Who are those people going to be, and what are their skill levels going to be, that type of thing. Because right now I'm not balanced. Right now I'm either chained to my computer or out networking and promoting the business probably 60 or 80 hours a week. Um, and that's, a bit over the top. So obviously I need to change that a bit. And so balanced life to me, I've worked hard my whole life. I'm, probably 5 years away from retiring, at least partially retiring. I don't see myself ever just, hanging the hat up. But from wanting to wind down, where right now, if I could do a 40-hour week every week, that to me, that's winding down, right? So, and then in 3 to 5 years, if that looks more like a 20-hour week or a 15-hour week, then that would be just fine. And I do see that light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like we've made a lot of good decisions; those have paid off, and now our expenses are very low. Uh, because of some of the investments we've made over the years. So it doesn't take a lot to fund where we want to be in a few years, and so that balance is I would say right around the corner, um, in terms of just feeling good about the amount of time that I'm investing in the business and the amount of time that I'm able to spend with friends and family and doing the things that we love to do. So,
Perfect. And sounds like you're ready for the next question. I think you prepared. Some people get taken by surprise. I don't pre-warn people unless they happen to have listened to my podcast. But what has been a pivotal moment in your life, whether that be a personal or a business aspect?
um, well, from the business perspective, I would say probably the most pivotal moment was when I was asked to take over that business in Las Vegas, or to run that flagship branch. Every position I'd held before then, I was able to, move from wherever I started into, higher and higher roles and higher responsibilities. And even when I started with that same company, I started a department that was a department of one and built it into about seven. And then when I left, suddenly I went from managing 7 people to managing about 55 people, and an entire operation. Um, so uh, so that really kind of gave me the confidence, especially since I was able to build that fairly quickly, and like I said, more than doubled the business. I mean, I'll just throw the numbers out there. We were doing about $22 million and losing money when I took the branch over, and at the end of the first quarter, we became profitable and stayed that way for about 68 months. And when I left, we were north of $60 million, but we were up to 50 in about 5 years. Um, so I'd say that was pivotal in a number of ways. It really gave me the confidence to know that I can run an operation like this, a multifaceted, larger operation. And then we had other businesses in the area that ultimately I became more of a regional manager as opposed to a general manager. So now I had GMs reporting to me. Um, so from a business point of view, that gave me the confidence I needed. That really sort of made the current role that I'm in a lot less daunting, right? I don't know that I would have said, hey, you know what, let's go out and invest in a franchise and I'm going to be a solopreneur. Had I not had the opportunity to know that, I'd been tested, and I knew enough of what I was doing that I was able to make it work and be successful. And so if I could do it for somebody else, obviously I felt confident that I could do it for myself as well. So that was very much pivotal from a business perspective. From a personal perspective, I would say it was marrying my current wife. We are we'll be 19 years in October, um, and could not have a more encouraging, easy to get along with, lovely to look at, mate to share my life with. So, uh, yeah, things have just been way better since October of 2006. Actually, since July of '04 when we met. So, um,
Lovely. That's great to hear. And how can people find you?
um, well, we are on the web at eragroup.com. Um, and I guess that would be the easiest way to find me. I'm on LinkedIn. I post typically every Tuesday morning. I have I write articles that are related to business, not necessarily cost savings, but just related to business challenges and some of the pressures that businesses are facing. So I'm a couple of weeks out from having posted my last article, but I do try to do that on a weekly basis. So you can find me on LinkedIn and look for my articles there. And of course, I have my contact information on there as well. So that would be the two simplest ways to track me down.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today and sharing your journey.
You bet. Thank you, Leo. I appreciate again the invite and the time.
And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.